police have made 2 arrests in the killings of 3 teens, and the suspects 12 and 17 years old. Police say the suspects and victims were all in a car when the killings happened. The Marion County Sheriff says the teens were involved in gangs, but they don't know that a rivalry led to the killings.
We were shocked and saddened by the violence, as all of my citizens, because we are shocked not only are the victims juveniles, but the murderers are juveniles as well.
Police still searching for a 16-year-old suspect. According to investigators, the teens got
At just 12 years old, Christopher Atkins believed that his age would serve as a shield, protecting him from the harsh consequences of his actions. He was far too young, he thought, for the world to treat him as anything other than a child. But when he became entangled in a brutal triple murder, the very thing he relied upon, his innocence, crumbled before him. The case shocked Florida, a chilling tale of youth corrupted by crime, of loyalty destroyed by betrayal, and of a courtroom twist that forced society to confront one of its most difficult questions. When a child kills, how should justice respond? Before we get into this shocking story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because every week we uncover real cases that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew. Christopher Atkins was not a hardened criminal with years of experience. In March 2023, he was simply a 12-year-old living in Ocklawaha, a small Florida community. But his companions were older, more experienced, and already deep in the dangerous world of theft and violence. 17-year-old Robert Robinson had built a reputation for petty thefts, his name already familiar to law enforcement. 16-year-old Taj Bruton was described by prosecutors as the ringleader, someone who had a knack for manipulating others and orchestrating reckless schemes. Together, the three created a combustible mix. 2 older teens pulling a younger boy into their orbit, and a boy too eager or too impressionable to walk away. Atkins was described by neighbors and acquaintances as quiet, shy, and easily influenced. But quiet does not mean harmless. Under the weight of peer pressure and the influence of the older boys, he began carrying a stolen gun. To outsiders, this seemed shocking. How could a child, not even in his teenage years, yet already arm himself with a weapon? To those who knew him, however, it was evidence of how quickly his path was changing.
We are well aware. Last Thursday, March 30th, we received a call near Forest Lakes Park, where our first victim, Layla Silvernail, was located suffering from a gunshot wound. She would later succumb to her injuries. The following morning, we responded to a location about a half a mile away and located a second victim deceased on the side of the road from an apparent gunshot wound. Then on Saturday, April 1st, my deputies located Layla's car abandoned and partially submerged in a pond about 9 miles from the location where she was found. My investigators located the third victim inside of the car. And I'll go ahead and tell you, because you've been asking me for specific details. She was located in the trunk. Now, the investigators were able to determine that this group of juveniles were involved in committing burglaries and robberies, which they were referred to as a lick. Now, although we had out there that was gang-related, we have nothing specific to say that it was any rivalry or anything to such that cause. But however, each and every one of them, in some shape or form, is associated with a gang. Basically, simple terms, there is no honor among thieves. And at some point, these 3 individuals turned on our 3 victims and murdered them. 2 of them right there. They fled the scenes but left a lot of evidence in their wake.
How the company he kept was reshaping him into someone unrecognizable. On the night of March 30th, 2023, everything reached a breaking point. Atkins, Robinson, and Bruton were together with 3 other teenagers: 16-year-old Leah Silvernail, a promising softball pitcher with dreams of college athletics; 17-year-old Michael Hodo Jr., a boy known for his charisma and closeness to his family; and 16-year-old Camille Quarrel, remembered as bright, kind, and full of potential. What started as a night that blended teenage recklessness with petty crime spiraled into something far darker. By the end of that night, the bond of friendship that tied the 6 teens together had been shattered.
That is right. I continued to dig through these documents tonight, and according to this arrest report, the 3 teenage victims were involved in illegal activities with their 3 suspected killers before the suspects turned on them and dumped their bodies.
Leah was found near a dumpster with a gunshot wound to the head. She clung to life briefly, only to pass away soon after. Michael's body was discovered the next day, left on the roadside, also executed with a shot to the head. And Camille, perhaps the most haunting of all, was found on April 1st, shot twice and hidden in the trunk of Leah's car, which had been submerged in a pond miles away. It was not a random act of violence. This was betrayal in its purest and most horrifying form. 3 teens turning on 3 of their own friends. The manner of the killings, execution style deliberate and merciless, left investigators and the community stunned. How could children commit such an act against the very people they spent time with? And what could have driven them to kill so coldly? The investigation moved swiftly. Authorities relied on more than 200 tips, a flood of information from the community desperate for answers. Forensic evidence played its role, as did technology. Phone records pieced together the movement of the suspects and connected them to the crime scenes. A stolen gun, recovered and traced, tied them to the shootings. The puzzle began to fit together, each piece pointing back to Atkins, Robinson, and Bruton. When questioned, Christopher Atkins attempted to cast himself as a victim. He claimed that Bruton had forced him to participate, that he was threatened with violence against his own family if he refused. It was a story that drew sympathy from some and skepticism from others. On one hand, it is easy to imagine a 12-year-old terrified into obedience by older, more intimidating teens. On the other, Atkins did more than just pull a trigger. He participated in hiding the bodies, in concealing the evidence, and in continuing the ruse until investigators closed in. His actions, prosecutors argued, were those of someone who knew what he was doing, regardless of his age. The legal process reflected the severity of the crimes. In May 2023, a grand jury indicted Robert Robinson and Taj Bruton on 3 counts of first-degree murder each, alongside charges of robbery, carjacking, and tampering with evidence. Christopher Atkins, despite his young age, was not spared. He was charged as an adult with 1 count of murder, as well as robbery and tampering. For many, this was the most shocking.
Louder.
Let me tell you something about Taj. Taj tell you he finna do something, and you decide not to do it with him, then I probably would have died with them.
So were you afraid of Taj that night? Because
bro, if I did not do what Taj wanted me to do, I would have died that night with them.
Taj is that bad?
A 12-year-old being held to the same standard as an adult. Yet for prosecutors, the brutality of the crime demanded nothing less. Over time, the case twisted and turned. In April 2025, Atkins, now 14, pleaded guilty to 1 murder count. As part of his plea, he agreed to testify against his co-defendants. This move was seen by some as betrayal, by others as survival. It painted Atkins in a complicated light. Was he leveraging his youth to escape harsher punishment? Or was he genuinely attempting to cooperate with justice? Robinson later pleaded no contest, while Bruton...
They like to me for no reason.
Atkins addressed the packed courtroom, telling the victims' families he feels bad, but he never did say he was sorry.
I got a good soul, good mind, good heart. People think that I don't care. I do. I got a whole life ahead, and people don't think I care about the victims or their families. I do. I think about them, about them and how they feel and what they go through. I feel so bad. I feel so bad about them. I'm really a good person. I want to be able to influence other people, do better in life, go to places around the world, donate to places, cancer places, hospitals, all types of stuff, help the world as much as I can.
The alleged mastermind eventually pleaded guilty as well. Their courtroom appearances lacked the bravado that had once defined them. Instead, they faced the weight of their choices. When sentencing
to my mama, my loved ones, for the actions I have committed, I'd like to apologize to the victim family for the hurt I brought upon them. I made bad choices, and it ain't no excuses for my choices. I'm not gonna make excuses for it or blame anybody but myself. I just want to apologize.
Robinson's word arrived in July 2025. The community held its breath. The decisions would not undo what had been done.
My name is Erica Trow, and I am the mother of Robert Robinson, who is currently before you for sentencing. I write this letter with a heavy heart, fully aware of the pain and gravity of the situation. I do not wish to make excuses for what has happened. I am simply asking that you see the human being my son is and the potential for redemption that still exists within him. Robert is 19 years old. He is my child, and while he has made a devastating mistake, I know he is not beyond saving. He has expressed deep remorse for what has occurred. He is not proud of what happened, and he has shown sincere sorrow not only to me, but to others as well. I have watched my son reflect on his actions with shame, regret, and heartbreak. He understands the consequences, and I truly believe he wishes he could take it all back. Your Honor, I'm not asking you to ignore what happened. I am only asking for mercy, for the opportunity for Robert to prove that he is more than just his worst decision. He is still young. I ask you to consider a sentence that allows him the chance to grow, to get help, and to one day come back to society a changed man.
In July, but they would send a message about how justice views children who kill. Taj Bruton received 3 life sentences, 1 for each victim. His role as orchestrator left no room for leniency.
The overwhelming thing is that he orchestrated the death of 3 juveniles without any pretense or any justification in any sense whatsoever. He did that at the time after cutting off his electronic monitor for a juvenile offense, for offensive carjacking. He did this offense within a couple of months of being placed on the electronic monitor. I just find that the seriousness and the heinousness of these offenses outweigh any mitigation that's been placed in front of the court. For the homicide offenses, there's really only one sentence that is appropriate in the case. And that sentence that he shall receive is a life sentence for each of his homicide offenses.
Robert Robinson was handed a life sentence with the possibility of review after 25 years. A small window of hope in an otherwise grim future. Christopher Atkins, the youngest and most controversial figure, was sentenced to 40 years in prison, with the possibility of review after 25 years. The message was clear. Age might explain his actions, but it could not excuse them. The sentences ignited debate far beyond Florida. Online, the the story spread rapidly.
Taking the courtroom.
The day started off with Michael Hodo Jr.'s father, Michael Hodo, providing a statement. This was read by a victim advocate. He told Judge Robert Hodges anything short of a life sentence would be an injustice to the three victims. He wishes the death penalty was on the table, but says the justice system is flawed. Next, Hodo Jr.'s stepmom provided an emotional statement. She talked about who Hodo Jr. was and how he and Layla Silvernail completed each other. She says the three victims' lives were taken by greed and jealousy, saying they discarded the victims like they were trash. After hearing from Hodo Jr.'s family for the first time, Silvernail's grandma spoke for the second day in a row, breaking down in tears about the loss of her granddaughter.
I've been robbed of seeing Layla graduate, walk down the aisle, attend college, and become a mother. I have to watch her friends grow up without her. We will forever grieve.
These teens
drawing millions of views and countless comments. Some argued that Atkins was a child who had been manipulated, that he should be given treatment and a chance at rehabilitation rather than decades in prison. Others insisted that his actions, regardless of his age, proved he was fully capable of violence and deserved the punishment he received. It was a clash of perspectives, compassion versus accountability, childhood versus responsibility. For the families of the victims, however, the debate was almost irrelevant. No sentence, no courtroom speech could ever return what was taken from them. They spoke about their children not as victims in a legal case, but as human beings whose futures had been stolen. Leah, remembered for her athletic talent and dedication, would never pitch another game. Michael, loved by his family, would never grow into the man they hoped he would become. Camille, bright and kind, would never see adulthood. Their absence was a wound that time could not easily heal. The case of Christopher Atkins remains one of the most unsettling reminders of how fragile the boundary between childhood and crime can be. It forces society to grapple with difficult questions. How much blame can a 12-year-old bear? Where does manipulation end and responsibility begin? And how should justice balance punishment with the possibility of redemption? In the end, Christopher Atkins thought his age would protect him. Instead, it ensured that his name would forever be tied to one of Florida's most shocking crimes. Robinson's life sentence, Bruton's triple life terms, and Atkins's 40-year punishment sealed their legal fates. But the deepest scars remain with the families who lost their children and with a community forced to live with the knowledge that even the youngest among them can commit acts of unimaginable violence. Was Christopher Atkins a pawn caught in the schemes of older teens? Or was he a predator hiding behind the mask of youth? The question may never be fully answered. What is certain is that 3 lives were ended far too soon. 3 families were left shattered, and 1 community was forever changed by the chilling reality that age does not always equal innocence. Right now, I'd love to know your opinion. Did the justice system fail here? Let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, subscribe for more stories like this one.